We are joined by former Shell Oil President John Hofmeister, who is right now the CEO and founder of Citizens for Affordable Energy. John, good to have you with me.
Thank you, Betty.
So, John, you say that it was statesmanlike, we were talking about this, statesmanlike for the Saudi oil minister Al-Naimi to come out and say this, but you don't believe him.
Well, the minister is a very respectful man, and he also is looking out, in his view, for what is good for the world, given the price of oil, and he's very worried about economic degradation because the price of oil is too high, and that would, of course, cause a collapse in the price of oil. So he said the right words, but there are many out there who doubt that the Saudis have as much excess capacity as he's articulating. I, for one, really would have thought that they would have put more oil into the market by now if they really had it. I'm not saying they don't have it, but I don't believe they have it. And the proof will be in the pudding as time moves on. I think the real problem is underlying demand strength that goes against declines in existing reservoirs that create today's problem.
But where is I suppose, the doubts coming from about what he's saying? I mean, where's the evidence for those doubts?
Well, we haven't seen Saudi production at the listed capacity of 12 million barrels since they raised their capacity some 4 or 5 years ago. They've never ramped it up to that level. And I think there are many out there who doubt that they have it or could sustain it for any length of time. Now, I don't doubt that they've tried to put in the extra wells, the pipelines, etc. But remember, they're doing an awful lot of water cut into their production, which is a sign that there may not be as much oil in particularly the big Ghawar reservoir as people might like to think. And so, again, we've been at $125 Brent for a long time. It has impacted economies. And why now? I think the why now is really trying to assert that there is concern out there for broader economic decline, which they're trying to arrest through more talk than action.
There's certainly a lot of conflict going on in the Middle East and a lot of questions still over what is going on in Iran. Is that going to continue to keep the price of oil up?
I think that it's like adding Tabasco. The geopolitical situation is like adding Tabasco to an already hot chili sauce. It just makes it hotter. But the underlying issue is global structural demand growth against an inability of the oil companies to really raise production very rapidly. Keep in mind, in the annual reports of all the major oil companies, I don't think anyone increased their production in 2011. In fact, there were declines almost across the board in production. State-owned oil companies, same thing. We know we have problems in Europe, Nigeria, Venezuela, and there are other parts of the world, that the Gulf of Mexico included, that are in decline. And every year we have to make up about 7 million barrels of new production just to stay even, let alone grow production to meet China's increased demand or India's increased demand. So we're kind of plateaued when the world wants more oil production.
Well, let's talk about China's demand, because there's so much debate now, John, about whether or not that demand, though, in China is going to ease because the economy seems to be slowing down.
Well, China's demand growth has been double digits for oil since 2005. They were around 5 million barrels a day in 2005. In 2011, they were more than 9 million barrels a day demand, and some estimate by 2015 they could be at 15 million barrels per day demand. Now, if their demand reduces, let's say from 11–12% per year to 8 or 9% per year, because overall economic growth drops to 7.5%,
right,
as is currently stated, that's still demand growth. Keep in mind that somewhere between 15 and 20 million new vehicles are purchased by the Chinese now every year, more so than in the United States. And many of those vehicles are brand new to the marketplace, putting gasoline in the gas tank for the first time. And that increases overall demand, plus more airplanes, more ships,
right,
more everything in transportation fuels. And so I see demand growth continuing.
Okay, still demand, maybe less demand going forward, but still, of course, growing there. John, thank you. Appreciate it. John Hofmeister, the former CEO of Shell.